Have you ever wondered what happens when a stubborn homeowners association president thinks her authority stretches beyond her neighborhood and onto a farmer's land? This is the story of how a single woman's arrogance turned into a battle that nearly cost me my livelihood, my freedom and my patience, but in the end, it revealed just how fragile power becomes when someone abuses it too far. I had lived on my family farm my whole life. My father worked this land before me and his father before him. Our house sat on acres of crops, tractors, and livestock, and though a shiny new HOA-run neighborhood had sprouted up right beside it, nothing about their prim, manicured lawns ever appealed to me. Theirs was a world of bylaws and control. Mine was sweat, soil, and independence. I had no intention of joining their HOA, and I told them that from day one. But Loretta, their self-appointed queen, didn't take no for an answer. She was the kind of woman who strutted through the neighborhood as if she owned every inch of it. When she first approached me with pamphlets and promises, I brushed her off. Then came the pressure to sell my land. They spoke about development opportunities, about how much money I could make if I stopped wasting it on crops and let them build more houses. But that farm wasn't just dirt to me, it was my heritage, my bloodline, and my pride. I refused, and from that moment on, Loretta turned me into her personal enemy. My farm was positioned so that whenever I needed to drive into town, I had to cut through their perfect little streets. Every time I did, Loretta would be waiting. Sometimes she'd just glare, arms folded, eyes narrowed, but other times she'd mutter something about standards or image. I ignored it. That is, until one afternoon, when she stepped directly into the middle of the road, holding her hand out like she was stopping a criminal. I rolled my truck to a halt, leaning out the window to see what nonsense she had cooked up this time. She leaned in, lips curled in disgust, and with all the arrogance in the world, she announced, "Your truck is too hideous for the class of people in this HOA. You can either change it to a sedan or SUV, or don't drive it at all." Then, without waiting for my reply, she turned on her heels and strutted away like she'd just laid down royal law. At first I laughed. Surely she couldn't be serious. Surely even Loretta knew that her jurisdiction ended at her HOA borders, and my farm wasn't one of them. But the pit in my stomach told me otherwise. Loretta had declared war, and my truck was the first battleground. A few days later, the situation escalated. I opened my gate one morning to drive into town, and there she was again, standing squarely in front of it. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "Seems like you haven't taken my warning seriously. Further noncompliance might attract extreme disciplinary measures." Then she turned and walked away, heels clicking against the pavement, leaving me gripping the steering wheel with equal parts fury and disbelief. What did she mean by disciplinary measures? What power did she think she had? I tried to brush it off, but deep down I knew she wasn't bluffing. That suspicion turned into a nightmare a few mornings later when I stepped outside and found my driveway empty. My truck, my lifeline, was gone. Panic slammed into me. I searched the barn, the back road, even asked neighbors, but no one offered a straight answer. A few avoided eye contact altogether. And then, as if waiting for her moment, Loretta appeared on her porch. With exaggerated concern plastered on her face, she clutched her chest and gasped. "Oh no, is something wrong? Your truck's missing?" How terrible. But then she twisted the knife with a final line. "Well, you know, this wouldn't have happened if you'd just gotten rid of it like I asked." That was no accident. That was a confession wrapped in smugness. I stormed toward her, demanding answers, but she just raised her hands innocently and said, "Nothing." Nothing at all. Just saying. Actions have consequences. Then she disappeared into her house, leaving me fuming and powerless. I wasted no time. I called the police and reported my truck stolen. They took the report, asked their questions, and promised to investigate. For 2 days, I lived in hell, stuck without transportation, stuck with the gnawing suspicion that Loretta had gone too far this time. Then the call came. The officer told me they'd found my truck, dumped at a junkyard. Relief turned to rage when I learned how it got there. Someone had ordered it towed. The paperwork was pulled, and right there at the bottom, in black ink, was Loretta's signature. She had taken it upon herself to act like judge, jury, and executioner, pretending she had the right to dispose of my property. The police were not amused. They brought the file back, flagged it, and noted the blatant lie Loretta had told them when first questioned. This wasn't just a neighborhood spat anymore. This was criminal. And Loretta had just overplayed her hand in the worst possible way. When the police showed me Loretta's forged towing slip, my anger hardened into determination. She had stolen my truck, lied to the authorities, and strutted around like she owned the law itself. This was no longer about HOA pettiness. This was about justice. The officers brought her in for questioning again, but this time she wasn't being treated like a neighborhood president with influence. She was being treated as a suspect. Loretta tried her usual charm act, speaking softly, acting like a victim, but the evidence was against her. Her signature on the tow order, her lies to officers, my testimony, it was enough to strip away every excuse she threw at them. She even tried to suggest I had arranged the tow myself for insurance fraud, but the officers weren't buying it. She had pushed too far, and now the system was pushing back. Word of what she'd done spread through the HOA faster than fire on dry grass. Neighbors whispered about it over fences, in driveways, at late-night gatherings. Many of them had been on the receiving end of Loretta's arrogance before, fined for trivialities or scolded for harmless mistakes. But this was different. Stealing a man's truck wasn't enforcing rules. It was abuse of power, plain and simple. At the next HOA meeting, Loretta walked in expecting to command the room as always. But what she faced was a crowd of angry residents ready to tear her down. They demanded answers, demanded her resignation, demanded she stop dragging their neighborhood into chaos. Loretta tried to spin it, claiming she acted for the image of the community, but no one was listening. The board voted her out unanimously. Overnight, she went from Queen Bee to a disgraced neighbor nobody wanted around. For me, though, it wasn't enough. Losing her title didn't fix the damage. I filed a lawsuit demanding compensation for the tow, the stress, and the lies. On the day of court, Loretta showed up dressed like she was attending a gala, all pearls and perfume, convinced she could charm a judge the way she had manipulated neighbors. But judges don't care about appearances. They care about evidence. I laid everything out clearly: her threats, the harassment, the missing truck, the forged tow order. The towing company clerk testified that Loretta personally signed the papers and bragged about being in charge. Loretta tried denial, finger-pointing, even claiming the signature wasn't hers, but the evidence was undeniable. The judge ruled in my favor, ordering Loretta to pay damages, reimburse the tow, and cover costs. The verdict hit her like a hammer. Her face turned crimson as she realized her power couldn't shield her anymore. Walking out of that courthouse, I felt a weight lift. I had my truck, my dignity, and proof that people like her couldn't bend the law forever. Loretta walked out the same doors, but her empire was in ruins. The same neighbors who once bowed to her now avoided her. Some even thanked me quietly, saying they wished they had stood up to her sooner. She tried to claw her way back, whispering lies, playing victim, but no one believed her anymore. The facts were too public, the humiliation too deep. She was finished. I went back to my farm, back to my land, my crops, and my peace. But I carried a lesson with me. Bullies like Loretta survive on fear, on convincing others that they have authority they don't really have. The moment you refuse to yield, their power collapses. Loretta thought she was untouchable, but in the end, she touched the wrong man's truck, and it cost her everything.